Hello again, Struck. Today I'm bringing you another video, and this one is for Outriders, an upcoming water shooter with RPG elements developed by People Can Fly and published by Square Enix. This game is probably, let's say, similar to Borderlands, Destiny, and other similar games. There are 4 different classes in the game: the Tricksters, the Devastators, Pyromancers and Technomancers. And with this video I would like to show you like an overview, summary of each class. It's not gonna be in depth, it's gonna be kind of like a shorter video. If you want the longer videos, the developers have a playlist of 4 videos, one for each class, 10 minutes long each. You might want to watch those as well. I think it's best to first say a few words about synergies and in general how certain things work. All powers in Outriders can be hot swapped when they're not in cooldown. You can even change them while in combat, but you also have to be careful to not end up dead while doing so. Powers in Outriders are designed to have a relatively short cooldown, so use them to get the most out of combat. You will be able to freely respec your class points, and as you level up you will be getting those class points, but if you make a mistake you shouldn't fear. You would be able to freely respec those class point allocations, and there are also elements of each class fundamentals in all skill tree branches, and those skill tree branches are intertwined and you can cross-link them to get that weird build that just hits the spot and adopts your preferred playstyle. So there's gonna be a nice build diversity as a result of this, of how you can start leveling in one tree and then go up or down to another, and then continue with that other tree, maybe go back down to the other or up to the other that you came from. So there's gonna be a lot of nice variety and diversity when it comes to the passives and how you spec into one skill tree or another. You won't be able to fully spec the skill tree, which gives you that tough choice. Do I go more for the tanky skill tree, for the crowd control skill tree? Do I go for damage oriented skill tree? So be bold, test various skill tree nodes and experiment to your heart's content without fearing that if you make a mistake you won't be able to redo it, and you would need to grind. There is no need to grind to respec, which I really well respect. So each skill tree has both major and minor passives. You can use those to get some weird setups, as I mentioned, but on top of that you can also use equipment that comes with various special skills and mods that allow you to further synergize with build around me items. So items would have mods, you can change the mods, most likely with some sort of a system. I don't know whether it's whatever mod item comes with that's it, or whether there's gonna be a system that would allow us to remove and replace mods. Keep in mind there's various mods and there's also various abilities for various special items, as well as set bonuses from certain sets that would definitely further enhance your a certain playstyle, such as a playstyle that allows you to regenerate shields, or a playstyle that lets you do more damage while performing certain action, or damage with specific item types, with weapon types and so on. So in general there's going to be a nice build diversity, which seems right up my alley as a game, because me as a content creator and as a tinkerer I just love making builds. It's my main type of content, and games like those are just they're music to my ears, games like this one. Without further ado, let's dive into one of the classes. The first class I would like to talk about are the Technomancers. They can infuse powers into weaponry at their will. They can exploit technology to the fullest in brutal ways. Technomancers are highly flexible in terms of build diversity and are most suitable for players who can pay close attention and like paying close attention to their surroundings and the flow of combat. Some key parts of a Technomancer build would be status effects, boss queue interrupts, and party heals. Those are one of the many tools that Technomancers can utilize as a support role. Their summoning skill and diverse choice of weaponry, with a heavy focus on sniper rifles, can be utilized when taking a DPS role. This class is perfect for solo players, and to me it's somewhat alike to Flak from Borderlands 3. The main focus of Technomancers are minions and indirect sources of DPS. The class has the following 3 skill trees: Demolisher, which is more of a jack of all trades, the Tech Shaman, which is more for like an indirect damage and healing, and then there's Pestilence, which is more for DK and damage. Technomancers can freeze enemies in melee range with their melee ability. They can also heal themselves like the other classes based on the damage they have dealt, as well as get a passive damage boost to long range weapons and anomaly powers. Just like the other classes, Technomancers have a total of 8 powers that they unlock as they level up, and you can have 4 of those equipped at once on your loadout. Here are 5 of those abilities. 2 of Destruction. This power has alternative modes. You can swap between a rocket launcher and a minigun as your 2 modes. The launcher can interrupt enemy skills, which can be amazing in boss fights, and the minigun is just to do pure pew 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 devastation. Fixing Wave is a power that is for the awesome healers out there. It restores HP to the Technomancer, their constructs, and allies, regardless of distance. Pain Launcher is one of the various Technomancer constructs. It creates an autonomous turret that shoots a salvo of carpet bombing missiles at enemies. It also can interrupt enemy skills, however the deployment animation delays the fire, so you have to be clever how you use this. Next is Blighted Turret. This is another autonomous turret that can also inflict the damage over time toxic effect on enemies, and it's kind of like a flamethrower turret, but instead of flames it shoots acid at the enemies. It can be very good for flanking as well as for hit and run tactics, or just to plain keep an enemy busy while you sneak up on them. Cold Snap is a large AoE skill that freezes nearby enemies. It's perfect to prime a group of clustered enemies for a DPS follow-up. It's also a great defensive skill to crowd control melee range enemies. There are 3 more powers that the devs have not revealed as well, so keep that in mind. Now let's look at an example combo that the devs have shared with us. This example uses Cold Snap with Blighted Turret and Tools of Destruction for the minigun. I personally would have used Pain Launcher instead of the minigun, but that's just my preference. And as you can see, the skill trees we mentioned earlier, the Demolisher, Tech Shaman and Pestilence skill trees, they would allow you to further synergize your build, and as we mentioned at the beginning, you would be able to freely respec your class point allocations, so you would be able to go out, experiment until you finally reach that perfect Technomancer build that you want. The next class I would like to talk about are the Pyromancers. They manipulate explosive volcanic energy and devastating walls of flames. This class is suitable for those who love to group up enemies and then bait them in a shower of devastating AoE destruction. Pyromancers fight at mid-range and don't have movement abilities to allow them getting in and out of combat quickly, such as for example the Trickster does. The main focus of Pyromancers is thermal and fire-based AoE damage and damage over time. The class has the following 3 skill trees. Ashbreaker for a focus on damage against marked enemies, more about that in a moment. Firestorm for a focus on skill damage and anomaly power. And Tempest for a focus on max health and damage reduction, which is more of a tankier role. As the other classes, this class also heals as they do damage, and aggressive play is encouraged. Pyromancers restore HP when an enemy dies while marked by their skills. Any Pyromancer damage dealing skill will mark an enemy for a set duration. Inflicting Burning will briefly stun enemies as well as interrupt them. Just like the other classes, Pyromancers have a total of 8 powers that they unlock as they level up. Here are 4 of those abilities. Thermal Bomb sets enemies ablaze and deals additional damage over time. If an enemy dies during the skill's effect, they will rise up and explode midair, dealing damage to other nearby enemies. You don't need to be the one adding the kill blow for this to trigger, so if a teammate does the killing blow, you would still see that explosion triggering. Ash Blast applies the status effect of Ash to enemies in a large radius. Ash immobilizes enemies and prevents them from taking any actions. It's perfect to crowd control groups of enemies and prime them for a follow-up nuke from another power. It's good to use both offensively and defensively to allow you to maybe get some breathing room. Heatwave is one of the earliest powers to unlock. It utilizes the class mid-range to send forth a wave of flames in a straight line that does AoE damage and burns enemies. It's an excellent skill to mark foes and set yourself up for a big healing burst. And this brings us to Overheat, which deals small amount of damage to enemies in a large radius, but does extra damage to enemies that are already burning. The perfect follow-up skill after setting a group of enemies ablaze. Another amazing skill to mark foes and set yourself up for a big healing burst just like Heatwave. There are 4 more powers that the devs have not revealed as well, so keep that in mind. Now, a common example will be Heatwave with Ash Blast and Thermal Bomb. And if I were to do it myself, I might as well add in an Overheat for good measure at the end as well. And just like the other classes, again, you would be able to freely Re-spec, so go wild, keep reworking the build, try to find that build that hits the spot for you, synergize it with build around me items, and hopefully you find what you're looking for if you love the destruction and AoE that Pyromancers provide. The next class we're going to talk about are Tricksters. They are the assassin class, and they manipulate the fabric of time and space to take out enemies by surprise. This class is for those who love to get in and out quickly while leaving devastation in their wake. Tricksters are all about movement, damage and destruction. There's also certain more tanky builds that you can do, and it's just based on what specific skills and passives you use and customize that build. So it's not all damage, you can be more tanky if you want with a Trickster, even though they're the assassin class. The class has a melee attack that stuns and slows enemies, and also the upgraded version of that melee attack is an AoE. Of course you do that while sprinting. The main focus of Tricksters are space and time powers and effects such as the class's melee attack. The class has the following 3 skill trees. Master of Space for a focus on close range combat that provides bonuses with shotguns and SMGs when using movement based skills, for example, or Harbinger for a focus on being a bit more tanky and providing bonuses to damage reduction and shield. Assassin is a skill tree for a focus on skill damage outputs such as bonuses when using movement skills and damage skills, as well as an additional anomaly power that you can utilize. As the other classes, this class heals through aggressive play. Tricksters heal and gain shields when an enemy dies nearby in close range. And at first glance people might notice that there's similarity between the Trickster and Devastator, but there are also differences. While the Tricksters get shield and heal for each close range kill, the Devastators heal themselves, they don't get shields, but they have a higher base armor and HP. Just like the other classes, Tricksters have a total of 8 powers that they unlock as they level up, and here are 4 of those abilities. Temporal Slice, the very first power Tricksters unlock. This is the class's bread and butter, and any enemy hit will get paralyzed and slowed. You would see the skeleton appearing and how the enemies are slowed. It's especially effective on large groups of enemies and in a combo with skills that cluster enemies together, for example, like the Devastator's Endless Mass skill. but more about that later during the Devastator segment. Now let's talk about borrowed time. You will see similarities with Borrowed Time and Zane from Borderlands 3. The same goes for the next ability after Borrowed Time that we talk about, but Borrowed Time basically allows you to instantly gain a percentage of your maximum HP as a shield that absorbs damage before your HP is affected, and it also creates a time clone of yourself where the power was used. You can reuse the skill to teleport back to the clone's location, and this allows for some nice flexibility in how you approach the combat. Next is Slow Trap, which again, similarity to Zane, it creates a dome around you. And it's not around the player by itself, it's placed on the ground where the player is, but it's not a dome like Zen in Borderlands that you can take with you and walk around with it. So it creates a dome on the ground around you that slows enemies and projectiles. While you and your allies move at normal speed. It's very useful for offensive and defensive situations as well, while resurrecting downed teammates. And next is Hunt the Prey. This skill highlights any visible enemy, and reactivating the skill teleports you directly behind a highlighted enemy while slowing the enemy and giving you a percentage of your max health as shield. It can be used to warp around the field offensively or as an escape mechanic. A combo example for the tricksters will be Borrowed Time. Then you can go up to an enemy with Hunt the Prey, teleport to them, use Temporal Slice, and then use Borrowed Time to escape. Of course, there's other combos, and you could find your own way you prefer to play the class. And just like all the other classes, you have free Re-spec and go wild. Spend your class points, make mistakes, experiment, and finally find that one build that hits the spot, that provides you with the trickster build that you love to play. The final class I would like to talk about is the Devastator. Devastators are a ground-shaking, earth-quaking class. They shatter the earth around them via a brute force powered by the planet itself. This class is suitable for those who love to be close and personal. Dead center in between your foes. They can be either played as a tank or take a more damage dealing role based on how you synergize your skills and item stats. They have a number of interrupts that can be extremely useful to shut down bosses. The main focus of Devastators are gravitational and earth-based powers and effects such as bleeding and HP reduction applied to the enemies. This class has the following 3 skill trees. Vanquisher for a focus on close range combat and providing bonuses to shotguns and assault rifles. Warden for a focus on being the ultimate tank with massive bonuses to HP, armor and resistances. And Seismic Shifter for a focus on mid-range combat, anomaly damage and damage over time under the form of bleeding. As the other classes, this class heals through aggressive play. Devastators restore HP when an enemy dies around them in close range. And as we mentioned at first glance, this can be similar to the Trickster, but there are differences. While Tricksters heal and get shield for each close range kill, the Devastators heal themselves, they don't get shield, but the Devastators have a much higher base, armor and HP. For those who want to focus on a more tanky role, there are ways to stack passive bonuses for armor and HP, as well as ones that allow to steal armor from enemies slain in close range. Devastators can have the most HP and armor when fully specced into survivability. Just like the other classes, Devastators have a total of 8 powers that they unlock as they level up. Here are 4 of those abilities. Gravity Leap allows you to jump into the air and hover for a few seconds. Reactivating the ability while targeting an enemy will highlight them in yellow, then slam down on your target's location, dealing AoE damage to any nearby foe. It's a very good engage mechanic to start the fight with, or an escape mechanic to move around the battlefield, for example towards a pesky sniper or another annoying ranged foe. It is also an interrupt skill which makes it great during boss fights. Reflect Bullets activates a shield directly in front of you. While the shield is up, any bullets fired at you are caught in it, preventing all damage. It is a great skill for allies to hide behind and use as cover, and as the name suggests, it also has an offensive aspect and sends out all bullets caught back at your enemies when the shield ends. Impale is another skill, and it's a damage and interrupt skill that's very effective versus bosses. It can also be effective as a crowd control versus a large group of enemies. If the damage dealt by Impale is lethal, the enemies will get speared by a stone spike, and this will grant your squad HP regen and armor buffs for 9 seconds. It also has 7 possible modifiers that you can apply through gear. And next we have Endless Mass. It releases a spinning obelisk that vacuums all nearby enemies towards its center. It's a vastly versatile skill that can be used in many builds. It's amazing for wombo combos with other classes or with your own powers. There are 4 more powers that the developers have not revealed as well, so keep that in mind. An example combo for this class would be using Endless Mass to pull the enemies, then Gravity Leap to jump inside that group of enemies, do some damage, and then use Reflect Bullets while in the middle of the fight to start collecting the bullets and then unleash that at the end of the shield on your enemies. Of course, there's many ways to play it, and just like the other classes, there are so many ways to synergize through respecting freely your class point allocations to make that perfect Devastator build, and as well as using build around me items to just get that maximum synergy for that playstyle that you want to achieve. And this was the short overview for all 4 classes that will be available once the game launches. I really hope that it was helpful information to many of you out there as much as it was for me. To get notified when I upload more content for this game or other games like this one, which would be wooters of all varieties, isometric, third-person ARPGs, wooter shooters and all sorts of wooters like that, you could subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss out on my content updates. And optionally, you can even join as a member of the Struck Club on YouTube as a channel member to get access to exclusive perks such as special emotes custom made by me, special badges custom made by me that represents how many months you have been a member for, as well as opt-in of editing tutorials that I can give for Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, as well as shoutouts and things like that. And I would like to use this part of the video to thank all my YouTube members and Twitch subscribers. Thank you for supporting the channel and keeping me going. Thank you also for watching this video, everyone. Keep it cool, Struck Club. Until next time, and goodbye.